The music was soft, almost too soft to hide the silence that surrounded her table. Laughter echoed across the ballroom, glasses clinked, couples danced, but she sat alone. A single mom in a borrowed dress, trying not to look like she didn't belong. She told herself she would leave after dinner. No one would notice. No one ever did. But then a stranger sat beside her, and whispered something that would change her life forever. If stories like this touch your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Welcome to Corner of Kind Choices, where small acts of kindness create the biggest changes. Emily Parker hadn't planned to attend the wedding. She almost didn't even open the invitation when it arrived weeks earlier. It was from her cousin, someone she hadn't seen in years. Life had a way of pulling people apart, especially when you were juggling 2 jobs and raising a child on your own. But her 8-year-old daughter, Lily, had begged her to go. "Mom, you never do anything fun," Lily had said, her big brown eyes full of hope. "Just go. You deserve it." Emily smiled at the memory as she sat quietly in the corner of the grand ballroom. The chandeliers sparkled like stars, and the polished floors reflected the glow of a perfect evening. Everyone else seemed to belong here. She didn't. Her dress was simple, borrowed from a co-worker, and her heels pinched her feet. She had spent the entire week worrying about money, bills, and whether Lily had enough for her school trip next month. Now, sitting at a table meant for 8 but occupied by only 1, she felt the weight of being invisible. Around her, couples laughed and leaned into each other. Old friends reunited. Families shared stories. Emily stared at her plate, barely touching the food. "Excuse me, is the seat taken?" She looked up, startled. A man stood beside her table. He looked out of place too, but in a very different way. His suit was sharp, perfectly tailored. His posture was confident, yet his expression was kind. "No," she said quickly. "You can sit." He smiled and pulled out the chair across from her. "Thank you," he said. "I needed a quiet place for a moment." They sat in silence for a few seconds. Emily wasn't sure what to say, so she didn't say anything at all. "I'm Daniel," he finally said, extending his hand. "Emily." His handshake was warm but not overpowering. "You came alone?" he asked gently. She hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah. My daughter stayed home." He nodded as if he understood more than she had said. "Well," he said, leaning slightly closer, lowering his voice, "this might sound strange, but would you be willing to help me with something?" Emily blinked. "Help you?" He glanced around the room before speaking again. "My business partners are here tonight," he said quietly. "They've been trying to set me up all evening. Blind dates, introductions, it's exhausting." Emily couldn't help but smile a little. "That sounds uncomfortable." "It is," he admitted. Then, after a brief pause, he said the words that caught her completely off guard. "Would you pretend to be my wife tonight?" Emily froze. "I know it sounds crazy," he added quickly. "But it would help me avoid a lot of awkward situations. And in return, I'll make sure you're not sitting alone anymore." She stared at him, unsure whether to laugh or walk away. "Why me?" she asked. He met her eyes, his expression softening. "Because you looked like someone who needed saving from this place as much as I do." For a moment, Emily didn't know what to say. Then, surprisingly, she nodded. "Okay," she said quietly. "Just for tonight." The transformation was almost instant. Daniel stood and offered her his hand. "Shall we?" Emily placed her hand in his, feeling both nervous and strangely excited. As they walked together, the room seemed to shift. People who hadn't noticed her before suddenly smiled. Conversations paused. Heads turned. Daniel introduced her with ease. This is my wife, Emily. Each time he said it, Emily felt a mix of disbelief and warmth. Not because she believed it, but because, for the first time in a long time, someone was choosing to stand beside her. They danced. At first, she was stiff, unsure of herself. But Daniel was patient. "Relax," he whispered. "You're doing great." She laughed softly. "I haven't danced in years." "Then tonight's a good night to start again." Slowly, she let go of her fears. They talked between songs about work, about life, about Lily. "She's your whole world, isn't she?" Daniel said. Emily smiled, her eyes lighting up. "She is." He listened, really listened, as she spoke about the challenges of being a single mom. The late nights. The sacrifices. The quiet strength it took to keep going. "You're incredible," he said simply. She shook her head. "I'm just doing what I have to do." "No," he said. "You're doing more than most people ever could." For a moment, Emily felt seen in a way she hadn't in years. As the night went on, something unexpected happened. The act didn't feel like an act anymore. They laughed together, shared stories, even sat quietly at times, comfortable in each other's presence. At one point, Daniel stepped away to take a call. Emily returned to their table, her heart lighter than it had been in a long time. Two women at a nearby table whispered loudly enough for her to hear. "Do you know who he is?" one asked. Emily frowned slightly. "That's Daniel Hayes," the other said. "CEO of one of the biggest tech companies in the country." Emily's stomach dropped. "CEO?" She looked across the room at Daniel, who was still on the phone, his expression serious. Suddenly, everything made sense. The suit. The confidence. The way people treated him. And here she was, pretending to be his wife. Panic crept in. What was she doing? When Daniel returned, she stood up quickly. "I think I should go," she said. He looked surprised. "What happened?" "I didn't realize who you were," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "This was a mistake." Daniel's expression softened. "Emily," he said gently, "look at me." She hesitated, then did. "Tonight wasn't about who I am," he said. "It was about two people helping each other." She swallowed hard. "But I'm not. I don't belong in your world." He shook his head. "You belong anywhere kindness exists," he said. "And tonight, you made this place better just by being in it." Her eyes filled with tears. No one had ever said something like that to her before. They sat down again. This time, there was no pretending. Just two people, being real. "I lost my wife 3 years ago," Daniel said quietly. Emily's heart ached. "I'm sorry." He nodded. "Since then, everything has been about work. Success. Growth. But tonight," he paused, searching for the right words. "Tonight reminded me what it feels like to connect with someone again." Emily didn't know what to say. So she simply reached across the table and held his hand. Sometimes, kindness doesn't need words. The wedding slowly came to an end. Guests began to leave, one by one. Daniel walked Emily to the exit. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" she asked. "For saying yes," he replied. "For trusting a stranger. For reminding me that kindness still exists." Emily smiled softly. "Thank you for sitting at my table," she said. "You saved me from one of the loneliest nights of my life." He reached into his pocket and handed her a small card. "In case you ever need anything," he said. She hesitated, then took it. "Good night, Daniel." "Good night, Emily." Weeks passed. Life returned to normal. Early mornings. Long shifts. helping Lily with homework. But something had changed. Emily felt stronger, seen, worthy. One afternoon, she received a call. "Hello. Hi, Emily. It's Daniel." Her heart skipped. "I hope I'm not calling at a bad time," he said. "No," she said quickly. "It's okay. I was wondering, would you and Lily like to have dinner sometime?" Emily smiled, glancing at her daughter, who was coloring at the table. "I'd like that," she said. That dinner turned into more conversations, more laughter, more moments of kindness. Daniel never tried to impress her with his success. Instead, he showed up in small, meaningful ways. He helped Lily with her school project. He listened when Emily had a tough day. He reminded her, again and again, that she mattered. Months later, Emily found herself back in a ballroom. But this time, she wasn't alone. Lily stood beside her, holding her hand. And Daniel stood in front of them, smiling. No pretending. No loneliness. Just love, built on a simple act of kindness. Sometimes, the smallest choices change everything. A seat offered. A conversation started. A moment of courage to say yes. Kindness doesn't need grand gestures. It lives in the quiet decisions we make every day to see someone, to include someone, to care. And sometimes, it turns strangers into something much more. So the next time you see someone sitting alone, remember Emily. And remember this. One act of kindness can rewrite someone's entire story.